All right. I guess we're ready to get started. My name is Dan Fussenheld. I am the problem captain, actually co-problem captain for problem 2 for Nova East Region 11, whatever we call ourselves these days. Today, we're going to talk about style for Odyssey of the Mind. And let's go to the next slide. So what is long-term style? It's an added element that enhances the presentation of the solution, gives teams opportunity to showcase their talents and creative skills, and to elaborate. Each problem has its own set of required style elements. Those are listed in the program in the problem description itself. And there's always two free choice of style elements. So you make sure that you read the problem. That's very important. Or you should make sure as a coach that you have your teams read through the problem. And what is style about? It provides incentive for creativity in different areas, because teams can choose the elements that they want scored. So if they've really worked really hard at one particular element and they want to try to get more points for that, is this gives them a chance to kind of show off their skills. And the style score is separate from the long-term problem score. So all the like objective elements, like if it's a technical problem, did this happen or didn't, things like that. So next slide. So how is it scored? So each long-term problem has 5 style categories, 2 required style categories, and we'll go through, you'll see some examples of some of this in another slide, 2 free choice of team categories, and then the overall effect of the 4 style elements in the performance. So how do these style elements kind of fit together when you're in the overall 8-minute performance? All style categories are scored subjectively, so everything's each one worth 1 to 10 points. There's a maximum of 50 points. The team who is awarded the most style points receives a score of 50. Every other team receives a percentage of 50 based on the raw score. That's what we call like normalizing the scores, essentially. So if the team got like 48 points or 45 points, then that's the top team. That team gets normalized to 50, and then goes on as a percentage on down from there. And this is separate from the 200 points that you get for long term and the 100 you get for spontaneous. So it's a totally separate score that you get. And then it's the judges. It's scored by a panel of judges. Generally, you like to have at minimum of at least 3 style judges, sometimes 4 style judges. And then the scores get averaged together. So what one judge thinks is more creative, but because you have multiple judges, you try to average out the scores. Next slide. So where do you find the style elements? So in the problem description, and this is the same for every problem, it's in style section F. So here's an example. You can see the first 2 are the required style elements. So in this case, it's creativity of one long shot character's costume. And the second one is visual impact of a vehicle. So it sounds like that sounds like this is probably problem 1, the vehicle problem. And then 3 and 4 free choice of teams. So the teams have to specify exactly, what is it you want the judges to score, and we'll talk about that in a little bit in another slide. And then you have the overall effect of the in the performance. So that's basically what that is. And I think I'm handing off to Abby now for
All right,
the next slide.
Okay, so what are style elements? The style elements are a free choice of the team. It can be anything they want scored. You've got the long-term problem that kind of keeps everybody consistent, but the style elements are things that are above and beyond that are specific to your team. So some common free choice style elements include any special effects, artwork, costumes, music, dance, your elements of the script, some technical elements. I mean, it's kind of the sky's the limit at this point. Anything that can be scored in a subjective manner that is not already scored in the long term is a viable style element. So what makes a good style element? Because just because anything can be a style element doesn't mean that everything is a good style element. Good style elements are creative. We're looking for things that are not just straightforward, obvious solutions. Think about using creative materials, creative construction techniques, creative, If it's something like a script, creative use of language. Yeah, I mean,
you could use rhyming, or you could use, other like iambic pentameter. I mean, there are different ways of making your, your verbal presentation creative.
absolutely. Music is very popular. We love original songs. I've seen a couple rap battles, very creative ways of presenting, beyond a straightforward script. All right, next slide. A good style element is also original. We're looking for things that, the judges had never seen before, things that make the judges go, wow, that's really cool. That's really unique. I've never seen that before. Or taking something that's really ordinary, expected, and kind of turning it on its head, reinventing it, again, creative use of materials, or taking a popular song and rewriting lyrics. We're looking for things that are original. However, just because something might be, say, unoriginal, doesn't necessarily mean it's a terrible style element. Something that is maybe not like way outside of the box, is a little more expected, but done in an extremely polished manner, extremely well executed manner, can also make a really good style element. Another thing that makes a style element really good is that it shows visible effort. We're not looking for kind of the shiny off the shelf solution. I went to the store and purchased this really amazing costume. Like, what we want is, what is your team doing? What is, how is your team enhancing their performance? So things that have visible effort that your team worked to create, to modify, to reinvent. We love all those little tiny details that teams love to put in. Some of the examples you see here, you've got this student who's made a costume entirely out of Skittles wrappers. I mean, that is a fantastic showing of visible effort to create this product.
I think the other point is that it's important that your team can explain the amount of effort that went into their style element.
Yes, we definitely, make it obvious to the judges that you put a lot of effort into it. Be proud of the amount of effort that your team put into it. Tell us about it in the style form. Tell us about it in your presentation of the style element. Don't just assume that the judges know how many, millions of hours you put into a project, because especially if it looks super polished, I mean, it's not always obvious to the judges that your team created something from scratch. I mean, brag about that.
Right. So for instance, in this upper panel, you see them working on individually gluing beads on a giant sarcophagus lid. So it's, each little bead is got, the glue gun is gluing it individually. And so clearly they're spending hours and hours, and, they have a picture or reference material here that they're sort of making this from. So just again, give you an idea of the kind of effort that some people put into their style elements.
I have a question about this. In the past, this is where the judges would question the students after their performance, but they're not going to be able to do that this year. So is that different in that they would need to write on the style form? How is that different from in past years? So
this year they'll have 8 minutes to run their performance, but their total video can be 15 minutes. So they can actually, the 7 minutes they have after the 8-minute performance is video clips that they can do where they would explain their style elements, or they would explain other things that they've worked on as they see fit. And there are instructions for how to put those videos together, but that's how they would then explain the effort put into those style elements.
And I think the teams could take that opportunity to even include like if you have a photo of your team making, spending a lot of time doing something, I think that would definitely add, let the judges know, like this picture here, you see the people doing the midget beating. If you have anything like that in your explanation piece of it, I think that would definitely be helpful to the judges to understand like how much effort is actually put into this. One example, my daughter was doing Odyssey a few years ago. They made these they only made these wigs, and they hand wove these wigs by hand, but they didn't really get scored, and it was one of their free choice of style elements. But I don't think they ever explained to the judges like they had spent hours and hours making these wigs at home. So they looked really cool, but I don't know if the judges understood like how much time they actually spent doing that. So make sure they can explain it, what they've done.
Okay, so another thing that makes a good style element is that it's that actually feeds right into Dan's point about the ways they're well described, what it is you want judged, and they're limited in scope. Again, as we said before, the sky's the limit. Anything can be a style element, which means something very big, but also something very small. If you have, say, I mean, a classic example is you want a character's costume scored. If you tell us to score the character's costume, we are going to score everything about the character's costume: the construction, the visual appearance, the design, the use of materials, the colors, how it incorporates with the other costumes. We're going to score everything, which may be what your team wants scored, but it may be something very specific that your team is excited about that they want scored, whether it be a specific element of the costume, say, a hat or an element of the costume, or something like a particular construction technique. If they're really proud of, like, the Skittles costume, the creative use of Skittles wrappers, they don't have to have the entire costume scored. They can have just the creative use of the Skittle wrappers in the costume scored. So think about or have your team think about the scope of what they want scored. And generally, very specific style elements tend to be more effective and easier for the judges to kind of wrap their heads around and score. So in summary, what makes a good style element? What makes a good style element is that they are creative, they are original, the team has put in a visible effort into how they created their style element, and they are well described and are in a limited scope that really encompasses what the team wants scored. The final thing is that they are effective. Style element 5 is always, across all problems, the effectiveness of the style elements within the presentation. So you can have a style element that is really awesome. Say your team constructed this elaborate tree piece of their set, and it's glorious and it lights up and moves and there's squirrels and it's really cool. But if your whole skit is taking place underwater, then is it effective? Does it need to be in the script? Does it enhance the performance, and does it have a reason to be there? So your style elements are judged on effectiveness. So ensuring that your style elements are effective is another thing that makes for a great style element.
Okay, so now how do the judges actually know what a team is going to be presenting to them? How do they know about the team style? And this is generally communicated via something called the style form. It's one of the 5 or 6 different forms that which can seem overwhelming to coaches, but the forms are really set up to help the judges know what to look at and what to focus on. If you're trying to find the style form, you would log into the Odyssey of the Mind team section, and you would click on the long-term problems and forms, and you would click on this style form, and they give you 2 formats. You can either fill it out in a Word doc format or a PDF and print it out. And there in that form, you'll find the 4 places for the 2 required elements and the 2 free choice, and then the overall effect of the style elements. And in the bottom part of the form, they'll give you some space to print or type, just as short descriptions about what the style elements are. So one issue that crops up is that sometimes the style forms are written in 8-point font, and it's like a book that the judges have to read, and a lot of times the judges really don't have very much time to focus, and so the style forms really should be pithy and to the point. Look at it as an advertisement for what the judges are going to see, and try to help them figure out how to say it in a concise and abbreviated format so that the judges get the point, but that they don't have to read a book. So make it, and the other key thing is to make it obvious to the judges where and when in the performance they're going to see the style element, so they know what to look for and when to look for it. When filling out the form, for Division 2, 3, and 4, the team definitely needs to fill it out themselves. But for Division 1, the Coaches, sorry, this says Division I judges, but Division I coaches can be ascribed for their team, but the words definitely come from the team. On the next page, I have
something else to say
Yes.
about with the writing the novel. So you do have on your style form, you've got where you list your 5 style elements, and you've got this half page for free text where you can say anything. You don't want to be writing a novel because that is way too much for the judges to absorb, but you do want to take advantage of that free text to kind of give the judges an idea of what they're looking for and why it's awesome. So don't leave that section blank. We get a lot of blanks as well, and that's kind of give yourself the advantage of using that text.
Right. So this is just an example style form. They have their 4 elements listed. They have a sort of a paragraph that talks about their performance and how all the style elements are connected. And in this particular one, they've got kind of a line for each of the style elements, or a sentence for each style element. I don't know. So I just meant to be an example to give you a feeling for what to expect. And then this is the team that presented it. So where can you get more information? Obviously, this training will give you a bunch of information, but most of the information in this training really is aligned and connected to a lot of the information you'll find in the program guide. In the program guide, you can find an overview of style, how to score style, mandatory style categories, and some details there, and how, what to think about for the free choice style categories, and what to think about when you're talking about the overall effect of the style. And a lot of times, I think with the overall effect, people will have a theme. They might, the team will come up with a outer space theme, or they'll come up with a pirate theme, or they'll come up with, and those are probably the more common ones. The theme in the previous slide was the theme of the mice who are trying to save the world and bring back vegetables, which is not a particularly common theme, but the point is that all of the elements of their style are supposed to contribute to the theme and have an impact on the overall presentation of the problem. The other place, of course, that you'll get more information is from the details of your problem. And I think one thing that you want to remember and help your team to remember is that style scores are completely subjective, and also, depending on which judges are looking at, they may find the style elements amazing, or they may not. What one group of judges likes doesn't mean that all groups of judges will like. And it's the only thing that the team can really control is how they feel about their style elements. They should feel proud of their style elements and not really worry about what the judges are going to think. And I think it's also important that if they feel proud of their style elements, they will feel more confident in the presentation of their style elements, and will remember those style elements for a longer period of time. So we have some questions to help you help your teams think about style. And I'm not going to read through all these questions, but the idea is to get them thinking about style early on in the process, so that they have the arc of time, calendar time they need to develop very refined and detailed and intricate style elements, and also to give them some perspective on stepping back and thinking about what the judges would be thinking about those, and whether judges would like those style elements. So in summary, for style, you should plan carefully and talk about style early in the process, but allow yourself to think crazily, come up with crazy ideas, and try to execute them. You should be mindful of the rules, but you should feel free to push the envelope. And then another key point for style is that to have good style, you'll need to work hard, but make sure that you're having fun while doing it. The last point here is that there is a Virginia Odyssey of the Mind style guide, which has 2 or 3 pages of information that you can reference and use to get more information about style. So I think that's the last slide. So I think, are there any other comments from other people or questions or?